Welcome to Thunderbolt. Today we are talking about Plato's Crito, the time that is okay for us to break the law. To answer this question, Tom,
Hi.
welcome back. So what is Plato's Crito?
This is a story about the end of Socrates' life. So basically, he has been charged with corrupting the youth and not believing in the gods, and he is waiting to be killed by the state of Athens.
Okay.
He's in his cell, he has a few days left to live, and basically his friend Crito comes to try and help him escape. Illegally, of course, bust out of jail and be on his way and not face the consequences. Socrates at this time would have been about 80 years old.
Oh, okay.
But from what we can tell from the text, it looks like he did have kids also, younger kids actually. So, because one of the arguments that Crito gives later is that he says, oh, what about your children? If you get executed by the state, you're going to leave children behind. But of course, as we know, in the end of it, Socrates rejects all of these arguments, including that one.
And this is where that famous quote, even the bad law should be respected.
Yeah, and that's kind of Socrates' idea until the end here. Crito comes to his cell in the morning and says, look, Socrates wakes up and he says, look, we need to go. Like, we can get you out right now. Just say the word and we're gone. And Socrates is giving him all the arguments why he thinks he shouldn't actually leave and why he should face the decision of Athens to kill him. And it's maybe worthy to know that even though he knows that the trial was not fair,
Right.
the trial was an unjust trial, and he still thinks that even though he doesn't believe in the law, he should still face the consequences of breaking it.
Why?
He gives all the arguments that the law, he kind of personifies the law as if he were talking to the law. What would the law say? And the law being a representation of the government. And he says basically they made him, without the state he couldn't exist. They educated him. The mere fact that his parents were married was based on the state and the safety that the state provides. So basically he should submit to the will of the state. He owes the state everything. And they say, and he says, maybe this is correct and that he should face and also he could have left at any time.
Right.
Athenian society was actually at the time, very free society. You could leave if you wanted to. And by staying, it was kind of like saying, I agree to the laws.
So you could actually choose to go and live in another country and follow a whole new set of laws.
Yeah. And at that time, it was like city-states, like in the US.
Right.
But each state had its own completely autonomous government.
Now, let's get these terminologies straight though. Rules, customs, traditions, and laws, right? And we take it that laws probably are the strongest and the most respected one amongst all.
Yeah.
But how are these things different?
So rules would be probably the easiest one that we all know on a day-to-day basis, right? Just the set of behaviors that are expected to take part in some social activity, usually a game or in any kind of activity. And then once those rules of a particular thing or for anything really kind of spread throughout society and those become the ways that everyone does it, then it kind of becomes a custom. Like standing on the right on an escalator.
Right.
That has become a custom. Maybe that was just a rule at first in one subway station.
That's a good example.
And
We
then-
don't call that tradition.
No, but we might soon because maybe after it becomes a custom, what makes a custom become a tradition is being passed down from generation to generation. Right. So, you wouldn't call it a tradition, right? But in a kind of a way, it kind of is. You might say we traditionally stand on the right. But, it could be anything. And then once those things get sort of made mandatory by the state, meaning you don't have a choice, you have to do it this way or we will punish you, then it becomes a law. That's a law.
Let's talk about how it's made.
Yeah, I was just going to link it to that actually, because laws, we don't just want, because they are going to be enforced using violence, right?
Right.
You'll be taken to jail, the police will come and get you at the end of the day, right? And I think the reason why Socrates decided to follow a law that he didn't agree with was exactly because of this, how it was made, which in most modern democratic societies is like a vote of the people. This is it's supposed to be represented by the will of the people. So maybe some representative in government comes up with a law, thinks, oh, I think this will be a good idea. And then the people will either vote on that law oh yeah, we all agree that's a great idea, let's do it. Or they'll vote on the person they trust to make a good law. It changes on place to place, right? Like in where I'm from, England, we vote on the person and then they will make the law. And then we also can vote on laws too.
Representative democracy.
Right. And so it depends on the place, but usually in modern societies, it's some kind of massive vote.
And one must wonder, is that fair? Is it really the will of the people?
Yeah, well...
Because there's always that question, what if it's 49-51, right?
Right.
So is that really fair and is that really the will of the people?
I think we have to almost come to the conclusion that it's not. How could it be, right?
Right.
However, was it Winston Churchill who said it, where they said that democracy might not be perfect, but it's better than every other alternative? So yes, to those 49% of people, they would be treated unfairly, right? They didn't agree to it, yet they are forced to do it. However, the alternative is dictators, tyrants, old style of kings and queens who can just do what they want. Like, oh, your house is now mine. And that's the law now, right? So it's maybe the best of a lot of bad systems.
Right. I just checked it. In Korea, the average amount of time it takes from a bill to become a law is 2 to 3 years.
Wow, yeah.
Right? And those are the lucky cases. Sometimes some bills are, has been on the Congress or on the National Assembly for 10 to 12 years. So it takes all these painstaking long time for it to be made. But once it's made, is it final?
It's not really final, just in the same way that the Constitution can be amended, laws can be stricken from the books, meaning basically deleted, taken off the books, changed commonly. It's not very common. Usually it's just more laws will be added to fix any minor issues after, but they can be changed. And we've seen that in modern and not so modern times, people all gathering together, maybe protesting, mass voting about one issue. So just...
And last question about the law, and then we're gonna go back to Crito.
Yeah.
To which side do laws side more? Some people say that laws always tend to side towards the poor and the weak, whereas people also tend to say that it favors the rich. So to which side do laws side with more?
I think it's pretty clear that a lot of laws, while it seems like they're designed for the poor, usually in some way benefit the rich, I think.
What makes you think that?
I think maybe two main things. One is the way in which laws are sort of proposed and made and influenced is something which can only really be done by that rich class. Lobbying, big companies or people with a certain interest making laws that will benefit them. And then the second reason why is I just look at the effect. We have a widening rich and poor gap.
Right.
And that doesn't seem to me to be entirely accidental. There are certain laws that seem obvious that they would cause that. So yeah, I think maybe they usually benefit the rich.
Now, Korea has a long and famous tradition of candlelight vigils and, we impeach the president.
Yeah.
Are these some model ways of fight against the existing law and power?
Absolutely. And it was great. It's a great way. I mean, whether you agree with that particular, example or not, just that idea that so many people disagreed and came out and protested against it is unbelievable. The people who went didn't know that they would be the ones, in the middle of millions of people protesting. The first people just thought, I think this is wrong, and protested. And they were joined by other people. Oh, they also don't agree. I'm going to go too. Until more and more people protested. And then there was change, like huge change. And I think in this particular case with Socrates, he could have been that first sort of pebble rolling down the hill that became a snowball, which became an avalanche. He could have been that for this particular law, but he chose not to. In the Korean case, it was so unbelievable. Yeah, it was so cool. People came out, the first would have been the pebble, then the snowball, then the avalanche, and then they had to change something. So I think that's a great way to do it, especially when the everyday person is kind of locked out of that system, right?
Right.
They don't have the money, they don't have the resources, But they do have the voice in the street, which is really powerful and peaceful. And so I thought that was really cool, really impressed me a lot.
Let's say we created a movement and we fight against something that we weren't so satisfied with, right? Who decides that it will be different from this point on?
Before I made this metaphor about a stone turning into a snowball, turning into an avalanche,
Right.
if this avalanche is coming and you're standing here and you decide to jump out the way, did you decide to jump? I guess you did, right? But the avalanche gave you no choice. And if the people are the avalanche and this is the government, they're just gonna have to move. They will have to back down, right? So yes, they decided to change the law, but it was the will of the people that forced them, which is why we have so much responsibility to say something if we see something we think is wrong.
So you do believe that fighting against or making a voice for the things that you think is wrong is important and is worthwhile?
Yes, I think it is. I think we should also be practical. We have to, work hard, provide for our family, care for our friends, and also say things that when we see that are wrong. I think it's just a balance, right? We can't just sit at home eating Cheetos, watching TV and just saying, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and typing on the internet. That's useless, right? We have to go out and be a good force. And then our voice will have weight, will have importance.
All right, well, I guess that concludes it. Thank you for your insightful talk.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye-bye.